All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Kenneth Price here on Saturday, June 28th at high noon for my first Zoom call. This one is entitled, get ready for this, Ego Backlash, Riding the Waves. And the Zoom call is for the new ministry, twoormoreare1.com. And that is the number two. All right. So I'm just going to start off this Zoom call by reading the definition of ego backlash. I asked Copilot to define ego backlash, and here's what Copilot came up with. All right. This one is a pretty good definition too. So the definition of ego backlash. Ego backlash refers to a phenomenon often encountered during personal growth or spiritual development. It occurs when, after making progress or positive changes, we suddenly feel like we're moving backwards. The feeling arises from the primitive part of our psyche, which resists change and prefers safety over risk. However, recognizing ego backlash provides an opportunity to challenge these self-limiting beliefs and continue moving forward. All right, that was the definition by Copilot. And let me read to you. When I told Stephanie Finn and Lloyd App that I was going to do this, and by the way, Stephanie, and they might come on this call, they've been very, very supportive. As a matter of fact, if it wasn't for Stephanie Finn, I might not have even started this ministry. She goes even further, and she sent me a short essay on her definition of ego backlash, and I think it's worth reading for the introduction to the Zoom call. All right. The ego attacks when you've become most loving. This is when the ego shifts abruptly from suspiciousness to viciousness. The ego will use the body to conspire against your mind. And let me add to that. This is not just the physical body. This also includes the psychological body. Okay, that's an important note. When we first start the Course in Miracles and read these passages, we really haven't got a clue as to what they mean. And then at some point, out of left field, once our mind is deeply committed to awakening from the dream and the peace of God, the ego then goes ballistic. All right? It is then that we must turn towards our holy guide and know that trust in him is being cultivated as we are going through this crisis in the mind. We have made a deep decision to keep going, and we have our mind under his guidance, even when it doesn't feel like it, and we cannot get it wrong. The ego cannot stop you once your path is clearly sought. We keep riding the bronco, doing the forgiveness work, working the workbook when we can, and know that this too shall pass. All right, those are that's some pretty heavy material, everyone. But like I was telling Lisa and Cheryl before I started the recording on this, we can't play it safe anymore. Okay, those of us are coming on the Zoom call. We're not coming on the Zoom call because we're on the Course in Miracles path. Everything is going to be fine just now. No, we've come on the Zoom call. We've been doing the forgiveness work, and we're being boomeranged with ego backlash, and we've got to talk about it. And I want to offer this Zoom call as a container for people who really want to express how difficult this can get sometimes. But the more difficult it gets, this is what I've been telling the people in Stephanie and Lloyd's ministry, and that's why I started my own ministry. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. Okay, we're not coming on the Zoom call as ACIM beginners. We're coming on the Zoom call because we've been doing this forgiveness work for a long time, and the ego is not our friend right now. It says the ego is saying, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! You and I have been friends for a long time. I've been letting you compromise, and now you've gone full in. What are you doing? What are you doing?" There's a lot of different dynamics the ego has to try and sabotage or thwart us from going into the light, from capturing our Christ consciousness, from remembering who we are. And so if we start this discussion and bring it forward, then I truly believe we can add our contribution to the ACIM community, and we can join each other as mighty companions and as courageous warriors, because I'm going to continue to use those two words. courage and warrior. Okay, so how was that for a winded 5-minute introduction? Let's see. We got Tishiana, we got Deuce, we got Lisa, we've got Lisa, we've got Cheryl, we've got Deb, and we've got Lena. Who would like to make their contribution to this afternoon's Zoom call? I don't know which direction it's going to go. It's going to go in any direction it's supposed to go, but we're going to talk about ego backlash here. What's your experience with ego backlash? What's your frustration with it? You know, you've been like me, you've torn out all your hair by now. Come on, you guys, we got to get some participation here. How about Lena? Do you want to unmute yourself? Yeah, I'm getting a nod from you. How's ego backlash unfolding in your script?
Yeah,
in your parable.
For a while now, I wake up every morning, and it started out with just a lot of fear, but then I started just crying. So every morning now, it seems like the grief is just bubbling up, and I'm just crying and crying and crying. And it just keeps coming up, wave after wave of, and so I'm actually starting to surrender to it, because it's been happening now for 3 weeks like this. So and my, of course, the ego is very uncomfortable, wants to go back to like a normal life somehow. But yeah, luckily I found this group with Kenneth and Lisa and everybody. So that's been wonderful. And I feel like this is my job now, is just to allow all these emotions to be released. And the ego, I mean, the ego, I try not to listen so much to the ego anymore, and just kind of go with the flow at this point. But it's been going on for 3 weeks. I guess the ego is going, when is this ever going to end? Like, but so that's what's happening here. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
No, Lena, thank you for starting off this Zoom call, because I take notes. I can, it's a difficult time for me to even read my writing, but I take notes specifically because when nuggets come out, and you started off, you've given us the topic. Well, I got the topic, but you've given us the direction for the Zoom call, because you said that you're going through grief, that your decision is to surrender, that the ego wants you to go back, but that your job right now, your full-time job, is to allow these emotions to be released. If we were not in a supportive container, we might be under the belief that something might be going wrong. Oh, I picked up the Course in Miracles, and I'm supposed to be feeling joy, and I'm supposed to be unicorns, and I'm supposed to be mad. Well, actually, if you're really serious about the Course in Miracles, it's going to bring up all this stuff that's opposite to love, that's in the way. It's going to bring up all the barriers to love. And that's what you're describing right now. And you're describing what the work is like in your parable right now. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. I want to give everyone, come on, let's go. Good job. I'm the cheering team, because I'm on the racetrack with the rest of everybody else. I'm waking up at 3 a.m. It's like, oh my God, what have you done? 57 years old, no job, no retirement. And it's like, oh, calm down. Kenneth, your purpose is the atonement now. God will take, Jay will take care of that. Trust. Because like, if you didn't use the word trust, you said it, unconsciously. I saw Jack Johnson come in the room. Jack. How are you doing, buddy? Jack, thanks for coming to support us. Last week, you really made a huge contribution, and I'd like to get your contribution this afternoon too. Well, it's morning. I don't know if you're in Guadalajara or Ajijic, or if you're in Canada. Jack, have you got anything to share with us about ego backlash? I'm putting you on the spot, buddy. I know you do.
Yeah, I don't know. Not at the moment. I mean, the self-concept, I guess, whenever it feels, what comes to mind right now is that the self-concept is, well, what I call the ego is the self-concept. And what we are is a mind. And whenever we hold something in that mind, let's say we hold finances, like you were just explaining about your retirement and all that, then we have a consciousness that forms, or a self-concept. So we have the finance consciousness. We could have, you know, maybe it's sexuality. So we have sexuality consciousness. We might have, you know, there's whatever. We could have any type of consciousness, because the mind holds a concept and it forms a consciousness. And when that consciousness is threatened, we feel like we're personally threatened. So I think everyone's been in this situation where maybe we have an argument with someone, or we're in a discussion with someone, and we might be talking about an opinion or even just a belief, and we question the opinion or the belief, and the person reacts like they're personally attacked. Or we feel personally attacked because someone maybe questions a belief that we hold, or an idea we hold, or a position we hold, or a narrative that we, you know, you've seen a lot of this with COVID, or you see the world tries to get us sort of identified with when we identify with, let's say, even a president. When you're identified with Biden, or you're identified with Trump, you know, and someone says something about Trump or about Biden, and we can feel personally like it's almost like a personal attack. Why is that? Why do we feel personally attacked when someone questions our belief about ACIM, or our belief about, you know, how we grieve? It could be anything. But as soon as we identify with it, the ego fights back, because it becomes part of our self-concept. So whatever we accept, whatever beliefs we accept, whatever positions we accept into our mind, become part of our self-concept. We become that consciousness. It could even be science. You know, you have people that have a belief about maybe global warming, or, you know, it could be anything. And someone, you know, questions it. Well, I don't know for sure if there's global warming. You know, I mean, the reefs in Australia have recovered completely. So, you know, is that real? And people can feel personally attacked, or respond as if they're personally attacked. They can, the fight and flight mechanism will come up, or they ignore, or they just don't want to talk to you, or they'll, you know, write you off, or they color you black, so to speak, just because of an opinion you hold, just because of an idea you hold. And I think, yeah, that's when the ego strikes back, and it'll either fight, argue with the person, you know, debate the issue, or it will flight. It'll just ignore them, deny, you know, walk away, maybe. Those types of reactions that I think we're all familiar with. So these things can be helpful if we're introspective and we recognize, you know, when someone brings up a topic, or questions a belief, or questions an idea, maybe, like you say, a president or a position, and we feel in our heart like some sort of anything but love, anything but peace, then we can recognize that there's something we're holding in our mind, that we've given value to a concept, a belief, an idea, an opinion. Something is in our consciousness that we placed there. And the reason the wind is blowing us around is because we have that sail up. And if we lower the sail is the answer, rather than trying to scream or fight at the wind. So the winds of the world will blow. You know, all sorts of opinions will blow around. And our function, when we get it straight, is to lower our sails. so the wind doesn't toss our boat around on the ocean. And that's sort of the analogy I use when I check in all the time and ask, how do I feel when someone brings up a topic or a narrative or an idea? Is it affecting me? And if it is, well, that's a sail I've attached to my mast, the mast of who I am. And so the ego, what I see as ego backlash is basically that personal identity trying to defend itself.
Okay. Now we're getting to the good stuff, Jack. Because as you're describing this, you know, as I'm hosting this Zoom call, I'm supposed to be some sort of well-assembled host and moderator. No, I'm not. Because as you're describing this, I'm getting these visions of all the time in the last year. You know, I've jumped off, you know, and taken some risks in the last year and a half, you know, traveling the United States and noticing that Spirit has sent me into location after location after location where I've watched my personal identity, you know, get blown to smithereens. And I've noticed, I'm sitting there, maybe I'll ask you this question, you know, what are the tools that we use when we're sitting there at a dinner party and they're discussing politics and they're discussing money and they're discussing retirement, and I'm just sitting there cringing going, doesn't anybody want to talk about ACIM? No, we have no interest in ACIM. We're going to sit here and we're just going to, you know, watch you simmer while we discuss, you know, politics and those are what my sales look like. My sales were full blown, you know, the last year. And it's you know, it's good. It's been good because I've been challenged over and over. Okay, I'll stop talking. It's your turn now.
No, that's fine. I know what you mean. I mean, this is something I think we all run into. I've run into that when I started to become identified with my spiritual path, so to speak, and that might be and this is something that can be a real strong identity. And you know, nations have gone to war over religion. I mean, many people have died, you know, defending their religion or their belief system, because the belief system is more than just a concept. It's a concept that we hold and identify with very deeply. So this has happened. I've seen this happen with many Course in Miracle teachers, so to speak, or teachers that have become teachers. Now, the Course is actually designed for a split mind, for a mind that believes it's in the world, that believes it's a body, that believes it's separate from God. So the Course was designed for that, and it offered the mind that wasn't ready to release or disidentify with the self-concept. It offered it a new concept, teacher of God. So it said, let's change the purpose of the dream. Now that you know who the dreamer is, let's substitute your goals for the ego identity, and we'll change the purpose into a purpose of healing, of peace, the purpose of peace, the one purpose of the Course. So, you know, you have all these desires. We'll take all these desires and we'll make one desire. Have one singular desire for peace. And now this becomes your purpose. The only problem that I see arising in that is you see a lot of teachers that become identified with the role of teacher. And so they've just developed a new ego. They might as well have become a businessman. It really doesn't matter. They could have been, you know, because it's still an identity other than your true identity as a holy child of God. So we substitute that new identity as teacher of God, and that seems to have more weight or value. And when that is threatened, oh, well, you know, or so maybe that's what you're feeling. Anytime there's a feeling that arises that's non-peace, you know, when we don't pass the test of perfect peace, when we don't feel that a calm assurance that heaven goes with us, then we can be assured that we're identifying with something other than the holy child of God. That's the only thing we know. We may not know what the holy child of God is, but we certainly know what anger is, what irritation is, what frustration is, what we know those things. So we can be honest with that. And that's why, like you said earlier, this path is a little uncomfortable. because we're being asked to look where we don't want to look, where we've ignored looking. We've been looking without, and now we're looking within. And with those same eyes that look for problems, we look within, what do we find? We find what we're looking for. And so that's what I think. It's just the exact same thing when we substitute our purpose in the world to get rich, to get successful, to get married, whatever the purpose we have in this world. We substitute it for the purpose of awakening, of healing, of enlightenment.
Thank you.
And then all of a sudden we've developed some new spiritual persona. And that's what they call the guru trap. It's a lot of the sages and would talk about this guru trap and becoming the teacher of God. So we've seen this in the community now. There's all kinds of things that come up because some of these teachers of God respond to misguided miracle impulses. They'll channel Holy Spirit absolutely perfectly. And then when they're finished, they gather the moths around the flame, or they start monetizing spirituality in a podcast or something like that. And so these things it's the exact same thing. They might as well become an entrepreneur or a business mogul because they've just really simply transferred one ego identity to another ego identity as teacher of God. So that's something I think people should be aware of. And if you are feeling reactions when someone, questions your faith or questions the Course in Miracles or questions your purpose, then you can recognize that the reason is the same reason it's always been, is because you have a new identity and there is no concept that can stand for the truth of what you really are.
Well, this might be a good opportunity for Kenneth to practice some humility here and share a parable that took place earlier in the year. I was at a dinner party, okay, and like I said, the conversations were all about things that I no longer have, like retirement and careers. And then I just got ordained earlier in the year, so I'm like, Jack, maybe this is time for me to put in my 2 cents. I'm a minister now. Kenneth Price is a minister. Well, I'm sitting at a dinner party. Nobody cared about the Course in Miracles. As a matter, so I'm sitting there saying, all right, put on your minister hat and I see the light of Christ in everyone. I see the light of Christ. No, I didn't see the light of. As a matter of fact, I had a martini, and that probably made matters even worse. So when a few people left the room and the choice people were, the choice woman was left, and they were talking about the people down the hill, because they were up on the hill and there were people down the hill. They were talking about the people down the hill. So, maybe the martini was speaking probably more than the Holy Spirit, but Kenneth said, well, the people down the hill who don't have nice houses, probably may be more connected to God than the people up here on the hill who are disconnected to God, who have all the money. And I stopped and looked at the woman's face. And what came out of me was not the Holy Spirit. It was a defense of my spiritual identity. I humbled myself the next morning. I went and I apologized to that woman. I still feel guilty. It's been several months, and I realized, Jack, you're right. This man here, and let me use this opportunity to disclose it to the entire Zoom call and all of YouTube, is that I want to be known to be something. Now that I've got, now I don't have a retirement, now that, architecture didn't work and construction isn't happening, maybe I can, start a successful tourmore1.com, Jack, you're right. It is a slippery slope. The ego wants in there. The ego really wants in there.
Yeah, and that's it's good that you see that. I mean, we can feel this desire to become,
yes,
right? To become whatever it is, and this that you can see and taste and feel that desire in ourselves and see it out in the world in many beings that are striving to become. So this whole consciousness of becoming, well, if you think about it, that implies that you're not, doesn't it? So anyone that's trying to become, that could not be the holy child of God. So any sort of energy that comes from a sense of becoming or a desire to become implies separation, right? Because the who I am now is not who I want to be. So there's a separation between the now and the future, right? So that becoming, any sort of becoming or feeling of becoming or desire to become, is rooted in separation. And who's the one that wants to become? That's a great question right there. It's who's the one. That will expose the ego every time. If you have, who's the one that's irritated? Who's the one that's frustrated? Who's the one that's defending themselves? That one question alone always exposes the ego, because it's only the ego that has desire or wants or not wants, which are fears. You know, I don't want this to, oh, I don't want to deal with that. I mean, so any sort of wanting or not wanting arises from an egoic mind or a separated mind or from other than peace.
What, as you were talking, there are two words that I wrote down that came across my awareness for my script. And, you know, I'm just going to expose this. I'm using this ministry to just expose myself. It's basically all I've got. You know, I got myself, I got my testimony. So here's what my ego looks like. I wanted to feel lovable, and I wanted to have worth. It's probably no accident my last name is Price. You know, Jesus has, you know, God's got a sense of humor. You know, I want to have a successful ministry so that I can have worth. No, the whole purpose of a minister is the worth's got to come from God first. maybe I'm an entry-level minister. Okay, we got other people in the Zoom call. Who's interested in jumping into this? Because we want to create a roundtable discussion. Cheryl's doing this, but you got to unmute yourself, Cheryl.
Okay. Hi.
What's your ego backlash look like?
Back to the dinner party. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. So back to the dinner party, I wrote down, this pops up into my mind a lot because I read all of Gary Renard's books, but The Disappearance of the Universe I read 2 or 3 times. And so often he would get into these pickles, you know, that are about his ego and about his big projects that he was being guided to do. And he would be really upset and really angry and feel that he had been stepped on, spat on, pooped on. And then then his Holy Spirit guests show up on the couch and they say, but Gary, don't you know, we've said this many times, this was a forgiveness opportunity. And that was, I had to hear that many, many times before I understood what that means, because it means different things to different people. But it's usually when you are in a pretty intense state of emotion of blame, resentment, you're pissed off, like I say, you've been robbed, and it's a high level thought that Jesus teaches, to be in such a state of, you know, this has happened to me, and yet how do I, you know, allow the Spirit to enter me and remind me that I am of spirit, that I'm spirit of God, and the abundance is overflowing. And yet, why are you letting all the minutia and the tit for tat and all that stuff of this world? And of course, he always has a good answer, because it's about his ego. It's about, you know, not his life insurance policy, or not about whatever, but it's about his newly found potent path of teaching these lessons of Jesus. And it means everything to him. But he's still living in this physical body with an ego. And so he's continually having these forgiveness opportunities, one after another. And they're really, 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 really hard. And so here's a picture. It's an artist's picture of unloading your closets. a man who's standing on the edge of a cliff, and he's got his bag of stuff from all of his life, and he's unloaded all the stuff from the corners of his darkest corners of his life, from his skeletons in the closet, and he is ready to, it says at the top. And so there it was. It had taken him most of the years of his life, but Gustav had finally managed to gather up every last one of his marbles, and now he could, once and for all, cast those damn things into the sea. So that's what Gustav is doing. He's gathered, his ego has allowed him to empty all the shit from all the dark corners and all the closets, and it's taken most of his life. But somehow he, you know, here's a couple other little things that these words are sticking to me because I think I heard them on a recent ACIM people conversation.
Cheryl, can I bring it back? What's your experience with ego backlash? I want to bring this to our personal.
Okay. Yeah.
What when have your buttons gotten pushed, and
yes.
when have you found the light, and when have you woken up the next morning at 3 a.m. getting a pow?
Well, I don't have too many pows, but I have recoveries. But so the recent thing is I was with a very large group of people in New England that were celebrating the life of a 100-year-old relative who everybody really appreciated. And so a lot of my sisters were there. And that's always interesting. Always interesting. As soon as you bring in a family member, whoa, you know, an ex this or a family member, you're going to get ready. Just get ready for the forgiveness opportunities. And so
just kind of narrow it down. Tell us straight out
what happened is that
and what you felt.
Two of the sisters fell into their old, angry, pissed off stuff and were going at it on texts to each other. We were all in the same little town. And I get sucked into it because I'm the big sister. And when they go at it, I feel personally, my heart feels threatened because I was like the second mommy, and I always thought of them as I loved them. I still love them. But these two lived in a very small bedroom and literally hated each other. And they still pop in and out of the hate zones. It's very cutting and threatening.
Okay, that's a story, but we want to zoom in on ego backlash. You know, an ego backlash is when we've had a great inspiration from spirit, and then you know we suddenly noticed that boom, out of the left field, you know, comes everything opposite of what we've thought we were. You know. I'm trying to narrow this in.
I'm not real clear on that, but the backlash. Yeah. Give me one more piece of definition.
Okay. Ego backlash is when we maybe I can tailor it, because I went a little bit off topic, and I think Jack, took it a little bit off topic. I'm trying to narrow this down. Ego backlash. You know, like can somebody help me out here?
I think I know. I kind of think just by the backlash, where we think we're on the right path, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And then we get slapped backwards.
Yeah. There you go. You did it for me. Thanks.
Yeah. So I've been working on this for a long time, and I feel pretty good about it. I can't teach it. I haven't been articulating it long enough. But so there, I think I'm in a stable enough, peaceful enough state of mind that this is not going to bother me. But when these sibling sparks and fire and hate comes up, I fall back into my little girl state of total fear. I'm going to be kicked out of the house because mom's pissed off. So all the threats land in me again. But now I'm able to like sort them and calm them down and regain my.
Well, wait, let's just hold that. I want to keep it real simple. Let's pull the nuggets out of this. Basically, what I'm hearing you saying is you got your buttons pushed and you reverted back into your little girl. All right,
Yeah.
let's just keep it real simple here. All right,
Yeah.
who else wants to jump in with that topic? You know, we think we're all spiritual. We get our buttons, and I'm not sure if this is, you know, specifically ego backlash, but the call can go any direction it's supposed to go. We believe we're a spiritual person. We think we're riding high. We think we're feeling God's love. All of a sudden, some turkey comes in, pushes our button, and we suddenly were not quite as evolved as we believed we were. Maybe we can rename this call as some spiritual humility. Lisa, can I put you on the spot? You've got to unmute yourself.
Put me on the spot about.
Yeah, because you're never sharing at these Zoom calls, and it's time for you to.
I don't share.
I don't.
very
I
much.
don't share. Well, you're going to
Especially
share
if I
now.
know that it's being recorded.
I know.
It just makes me feel nervous all of a sudden.
Yeah, well, you've been on this path as long as I have, so come on. We gotta
I don't know. I just sometimes feel some peace for a little while, and then something outside happens, and I start to question, and everything I thought was like a certain way, my ego will twist it to something completely different, and then I get paranoid and weird and needy and
I know. I had a sponsor in a 12-step program decades ago. My very first sponsor, an Al-Anon, and she put it to me very simple. I'd never forgotten the words, those exact words to me. She was standing in the kitchen and she just turned around and she looked at me and she said, young man, she said, do the best you can to stay humble on this journey, because when you least expect it, God's going to whack you behind the knees. You know, all this ACIM work for, you know, years and years, I become a minister. No, it was right there 30 years ago. She just said, stay humble because God's going to whack you behind the knees. That's about as simple as it gets. Now, is that part of ego backlash? Well, maybe that's the direction this Zoom call ought to take.
It's just, you know what? It's always constantly looking at whatever concept, whatever reactions you have to everything. I mean, I just think that's what we do. We look and wait and judge not. And I don't necessarily want to label anything, even ego backlash. It's like, it's putting that into like a box too.
Well, maybe to bring this call back, because I think, and I take full responsibility. You know, Cheryl, I apologize if I'm trying to steer the call back, and I'm losing some clarity. I'm glad you're smiling. You're still my friend. I'm losing some clarity here myself. So let me go back to our original purpose and read the definition of ego backlash, and then I'm also going to read what Stephanie Finn sent me, because this is an important topic that, you know, kind of we all like to talk about our experiences, but I want to get a definite topic here. All right, so the definition of ego backlash. Ego backlash refers to a phenomenon often encountered during personal growth or spiritual development. It occurs when, after making progress or positive changes, we suddenly feel like we're moving backwards. This feeling arises from the primitive part of our psyche, which resists change and prefers safety over risk. However, recognizing ego backlash provides an opportunity to challenge these self-limiting beliefs and continue moving forward. The ego attacks when you're being the most loving. Now, this is the part that Stephanie Finn said. The other part was from Copilot's definition of ego backlash. The ego shifts abruptly from suspicious to vicious.
There you go.
Yeah, maybe that's, when have we all noticed that, you know, if we were not on the spiritual path, if we were not ACIM students, if we could just must be massaging our ego, maybe it would be leaving us alone. But who here is being woken up at 3 a.m. with you know, moments of terror, moments of fear, moments of shame, guilt, blame, you know, like I did, you know, that woman at the dinner party, I went to her the next morning and I said, ma'am, I'm sorry. What came out of Kenneth was just disrespectful. It was unwarranted. And you know what she said to me? She said, oh, I never thought anything of it. Now, either she was not telling me the truth or it really wasn't a big deal for her, but my ego was just cringing on me saying, you know, bad, Kenneth. You know, it's like beating me over the head with the Course in Miracles, Catholic nun ruler. You know, how many of us have just been experiencing so much ego backlash where the ego just is relentless on us? You know, if we're on this path, the ego is going to be absolutely relentless. You know, it's not going to want us to go any further. It's going to do everything it can to sabotage us. And it starts, you know, in my story, a lot, it looks, you know, it's looking like shame and guilt, you know. You know, Stephanie and I just called her and Lloyd this morning, you know, asking for help. You know, I said, my ego, you know, is just being so cruel to me. It's beating the crap out of me. Excuse my 4-letter words, but who else is having their egos beating the crap out of them right now because they're going towards the light? And Lisa's raising her hand, so maybe you can unmute yourself and go next. What's your ego look like on the Saturday afternoon?
Well, it makes sense in a way because in my experience, it's been such a roller coaster ride I finally kind of come to a realization. It makes sense. It's a light bulb. And then all of a sudden the ego comes back, you know, just full fighting and it's all about, for me, it's been beating myself up, judging myself, feeling all those feelings of just not being good enough, not getting it, and all the things. And thank you, Jack, for saying what you said earlier. That really spoke to me very specifically with a situation that I've been going through in a conversation I had just last night. So thank you so much for sharing what you shared.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, Lisa. I love these Zoom calls because like there's so much, you guys have so much wisdom that comes out of you. When we say the ego goes from suspicious to vicious, you know, as if we're going to be vicious on other people. By now, most of us in the spiritual journey are not going to go out and attacking other people. Doesn't matter. If we attack ourselves, we're attacking somebody else. And isn't that what's happening when we're beating ourselves up? Isn't that what I'm doing at 3 a.m.? You know, bad Kenneth, bad Kenneth, bad Kenneth. You know, I might as well, you know, be out there, you know, robbing banks and, you know, hijacking cars. You know, if I'm doing it to myself, I'm doing it to others, aren't I? You know, the only child of God is supposed to be, you know, I'm supposed to be loving myself and here. So, but, you know, Jack, you've been a great help because who's the one, you know, maybe you can bring us back. That's when I called you weeks and weeks ago, you know, I was in a kind of a very, you know, verklempt state. And you just said, Kenneth, ask who's the one who's doing it. You know, who's the one? I think, who else brought that up? Isn't that what you brought up too? Well, maybe it was Lisa. As Course in Miracles students, this is the point that I think, I don't know who I was joining with last night, but finally I found my voice, you know, after years and years in the spiritual path, you know, trying to be a spiritual person. Oh, as if good luck with that, you know, trying to be a spiritual person, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, I'm attacking. No, I finally realized, I think it was Tamara who finally, you know, pushed me over the edge a couple of days ago when she finally said that she finally realized that she can't fix Tamara. She can't help Tamara. I don't think she'd mind me using her name on this Zoom call. As a matter of fact, and I finally realized, I'm going to use the I form now. I can't help Kenneth. I can't fix Kenneth. As a matter of fact, you know, the dream character Kenneth will never be spiritual. He will never get out of his resentments. He will never get out of his self-pity, his shame, his guilt. And the moment I realized that the dream character Kenneth is completely, you know, beyond all hope, I started to kind of relax a little bit. And I started to feel a little bit lighter. I said, you know, maybe this whole path of trying to improve Kenneth, of trying to, you know, maybe it's been one big hall of mirrors. Maybe it's been one big hoax. Maybe it's been one big cosmic joke. That the dream character Kenneth is beyond all help. He's beyond all hope. But finally, Jack, you know, that's when I finally made a little bit of space when I realized maybe Jack was right. Maybe I'm not Kenneth after all.
No, you're nailing it now. That's the fact that the ego resists hearing or doesn't want to go to. It would rather do some form of self-improvement. It wants to push the guilt away. It wants to push away the anger, wants to push away, wants to those things to leave. but they're part and parcel of the whole ego concept. The whole, as soon as you're the character on the battlefield, there's no hope for that character. There's no hope for Kenneth. There's no hope for Jack. So the whole concept of becoming or healing or growing, at some point in this journey, that leaves. So in the initial phases in the course, we deal with sort of concepts. And there's a quote in the course that says, concepts are useful while perception lasts, and changing concepts is salvation's task. So we may have some concepts to work on until the fear gets to a point. But you're right. Eventually, we come to the awareness that there is no hope for Jack or Kenneth. There are concepts within the dream of death. They're part of what comes and goes. They're part of what passes away. They're part of, so this is the concept of the self that the course talks about, that we made, not the holy child of God that God made. That's not the thought in God's mind. Jack is the thought in the ego. That is the ego. Jack, his past, his accomplishments, his education, his experiences, his spirituality. So a lot of people will come to the Course in Miracles, or they'll come to any religious path, and they say, okay, well, I'm a man, I'm this age, I am a teacher, or I'm a fireman, and I'm also spiritual. And they just add spirituality as another trait to their ego. And this is the error that we initially make. But if you go long enough down this path, you realize that the Course is talking about dissolving every concept of yourself and diminishing your identity. It was never a problem with selfishness. Selfishness was never the problem. It wasn't the greed. It wasn't the lust. It wasn't the envy. It wasn't the all of that. That's all part of the ego. That goes with ego, goes with separation. As soon as you become separate from others, comparison comes in, envy, jealousy, greed, lust. All of those things enter into the whole concept of separation. They're part of it. So that's why we practice a miracle. After you finish the course, it talks in the manual about practicing the miracle. And the miracle is when you do just what you just did. And you say, who's the one? And you recognize from above the battlefield that false character, there's no hope for it. It's doomed. It's part of what comes and goes. It will come and it will go. It will die. And, when Christ realized that, and he talked to his disciples at the Last Supper, he knew he was going. He knew he was done. And he accepted that it doesn't really matter. It's just the body that's part of what comes and goes. And he didn't resist it. He didn't fight against it. And he tried to teach his disciples the same thing. Don't resist the inevitable. The body, the ego, is what comes and it will go. That's not the truth about yourself. But every time we come to that awareness, every time we practice being above the battlefield, we practice that miracle. There's more awareness. Awareness brightens, awareness lightens. And this is our function as holy teachers of God, is to remind each other that we're dreaming. That's our only function. You're just dreaming that you're Kenneth. There's really only one dreamer. And this doesn't sound like, so in reality, this is your voice talking back to you. This is one mind interacting with itself. That's what's always happening in every dream. And all the characters are created by that one mind, not Jack's mind, not Kenneth's mind, but the dreamer's mind. Kenneth and Jack and everyone else are all just characters that arose in the script that we wrote. You see? And so you nailed it when you said, when you came to the awareness that there is no hope for Kenneth. Give up the hope for Kenneth. The whole error isn't about correcting Kenneth or dissolving his beliefs or changing the way he thinks. Those are helpful in the beginning. But now you've come to the awareness that you're not Kevin. You're not Kenneth.
It's Kenneth. I didn't get this because I was a good Course in Miracles student. I didn't get this because as a matter of fact, I'm probably, the world's worst Course in Miracles student. I got this because I just got so stuck in the flypaper that I couldn't do it anymore. The more I tried to fix myself, the worse I got. I became an angry Course in Miracles student, getting kicked out of all these spiritual communities, so I'm probably not the. Cheryl's doing that too. Do you want to speak to that, or just want to say hi to me? Are you agreeing?
No.
Lisa, I see. I see Lisa. Jack, when you were sharing, and thank you, Jack. This is the reason I wanted you on board. I want to get this recorded. I saw Lisa and Lisa doing this. They were nodding their head as they could really hear. They were, yeah. And Lisa's. If either one of you want to speak to that, this is our Zoom call.
I just realized for a while now that I'm never going to improve my ego. That's just not going to happen. It's not even real. I mean, I keep going. While we're talking, I keep thinking about that paragraph 7 from lesson 189. That's such a great paragraph. It's like letting go of all the concepts, all the beliefs, just coming to your God with totally empty hands. And that's really hard to do, but we have to get to that quiet, still place in our minds. And that's beyond all of this, all the labels and all the names and all that. So anyway, that's what I keep thinking about during this class, because that for me is just a really important paragraph. Yeah.
I'm feeling to bring this back towards topic. I'm glad we went in, on all these tangents because it's perfect. But I want to bring this back to Ego Backlash. And Jack, because Jack, I've known you for years, and you've always nailed it. But I've also known your journeys. You're not coming in here with a rainbows and unicorns journey. As a matter of fact, if you hadn't had those collapses, you probably wouldn't be a Course in Miracles. You're almost a scholar or a teacher. Unless you need to know that. But what have your ego backlashes looked like? Can you share with us your experience specifically with your ego backlashes? Because you've had a rough ride. I can see it, I can sense when someone's, been through the ringer.
Yeah, no, that's true. The ego, I think the course summed this up really good. I remember once, after having a nervous breakdown and losing millions of dollars in my status and everything I thought I was, I remember just pouring into the course. I mean, nothing makes you more dedicated than stark fear.
Okay.
So
good.
So I remember reading this one statement. I'm reading the course, and all of a sudden it says, the Holy Spirit is certain of your ultimate success. And I was like, oh, great, he's certain. And I flipped the page. Why is he certain? He says, because the Holy Spirit recognizes that although your tolerance for pain is high, it's not without a limit. And I was like, what the hell is God laughing at me? He's torturing me? What the hell is going on? And but I recognized that eventually we have had enough pain. And so there's actually pain you could see, not that this is the way I would look at it, but you can see it as a type of blessing. Because if there was no pain in this world, and I could go into my personal suffering, but we've all suffered. I know that everyone has had a suffering story, and quite frankly, I can't really recall my suffering stories at this point, but they were intense, and everyone understands the intense suffering that comes with identifying with the self-concept. But yeah, I think I lost my train of thought there.
The stream of consciousness is fine with us.
Sorry?
Stream of consciousness is fine with us.
Yeah. So eventually you just abandon it. You have enough pain and you're ready. At some point the pain becomes intense enough that, like you were suggesting, you battled with your ego, trying to improve it, trying to correct it, running to this course, running to this guru, going into these meetings and just causing nothing but friction and trouble. And at some point, it's enough pain, and it just becomes enough. And you just, I guess we scream uncle or something like that. Maybe we just scream help. I don't know what it is, but at some point it becomes intense enough that we're truly just empty our minds, and we no longer look for our own answers. And when that, as I'm sorry, I forgot her name, but as she said, that 189, when we're ready to abandon all the concepts in our mind, we don't value or identify with any of them anymore, and we're willing to empty our mind completely and step into a real question, a question that we go to and we ask without bias. We don't come with any preconceptions of ourselves or the world or others. We come with a completely empty mind, and we ask, who am I?
There it is. You got it, Jack. You nailed it. You came back to center. Who's the one? Who's the one who lost all the money? Who's the one who humiliated himself at the dinner party? Who's the one who harmed his family? Who? Does it? Maybe this path goes very simple. But what I loved about your share, Jack, is it, and I think it stands. Nobody would be on this Zoom call if as a matter of fact, if your life's going well, stay away from the Course in Miracles. You don't need it. Course in Miracles is for those of us who have begun to enter the cocoon and started to ask, what the hell is happening? What's happening to my caterpillar? Why? Well, then I did a poem once. I called it Hand in the Dark. He hands you this blue book and he says, here's your new instruction manual. You're going to have to bring a new operating system online because the old one's going out the window. That was Caterpillar technology. And I don't know about you guys, but you're right, Jack. Tolerance for pain is high, but it has its limits. And it wasn't that, I was a good Course in Miracles student. It's just that I can't do this anymore. Kenneth cannot do this. Kenneth can't. And that's when I heard the voice said, it was kind of a chuckle. And I knew it wasn't my spirit guide. And she said, of course you can't do it. You silly, you can't do it. No, Kenneth can't. Kenneth the caterpillar can't do it. Are we starting to kind of sense the irony in all of this? No human being can do this because we're not caterpillars. Course in Miracles is written for butterfly language. That's not written for caterpillars. But the cocoon phase, I always break it up into 3 stages: caterpillar, cocoon, and butterfly. And the Course in Miracles is our instruction manual through and beyond the cocoon. Not like we escape the cocoon, we dissolve it and we unbelieve it. This is abstract stuff, you guys, but this is how we expand beyond, and the ego backlash. And oh, hi Martin. Ego backlash inside. You're a little bit late, but the ego backlash inside the cocoon. It ain't much fun. All right, you guys, we only got about 2 minutes left. It's and I like to keep these recordings only on an hour. We'll keep the Zoom room open for the next, we'll keep it open as long as anybody wants. But does anybody, I just want to real quickly, anybody who hasn't shared, feel they want to, add some 2 cents, but can you keep it real? Well, you don't have to keep it real quick. We can go over the hour. But anybody else want to add to this? Any aha moments? Any buttons got pushed? Did I piss you off? Do you want to call me 4-letter words?
I want to say something.
You want to call me a 4-letter word?
Well, no, I can put that aside for now. No, but I just want to say what wants to come shouting out of my mouth is that in all of this ego backlashing and all the shit stuff, and this is what I want to say. We have to choose to be guided. If we don't stop and be silent for at least a minute and realize you can't do it yourself, step out of your identity and effing ask for guidance. There you go. You got to choose to do it. Step into it.
You can say it. I won't. I'll. You can say the 4-letter word.
No, I say acid. That's good enough.
Cheryl, I love you. Thanks for coming. I want to thank everybody for coming out and supporting. Who we got? We got Cheryl. We got Lisa. It's hard on Zoom because these names are so. Deb. We got Jack, Lisa, Fatima, Martin, I will get you next, and Rihanna, and then Lena was on earlier. Yes, thanks for coming out and supporting Kenneth, because this I got to start talking about this difficult stuff, and I'm going to raise my voice. So this is Kenneth Price on Saturday, June 29th, and I just couldn't be more grateful that all of you came out and helped so I can remind myself, teach myself what I need to learn. This is the first Zoom call for my half of the ministry, 2ormoreare1.com, and the topic of this Zoom call was Ego Backlash, riding the waves. We went a little bit off topic, but that's fine. We're Course in Miracles students. We're not going to keep to an outline. And if you're watching this, please leave your comments below on, hi, Stephanie. The recording's just about, we're just about wrapping up the recording, but we'll keep the Zoom room open. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave your comments below. No, wait a minute. You know what? I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna keep this recording going. Stephanie, let's get you on the recording. I can edit this out. But now that you've come online, and Martin too, you know what? You guys, now that you're on the Zoom room, I don't have any structure. I don't have to end it after the hour. What do you guys want to contribute to Ego Backlash? We've had Jack, I don't know if you've met Jack Johnson. If you haven't, you should. You know, he's one of my dearest mighty companions, and I'd actually go so far as to call him a course scholar, but you both are course scholars. Do you have anything to contribute to Ego Backlash?
Ego Backlash. Martin, would you like to go first?
Well, I've experienced it quite a lot.
Yeah, well, tell us about your experience. I want to get it on recording, you know, because this is valuable for other Course in Miracles students.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, yeah, it happens all the time. The closer, I mean, it's constant, and it's sort of an ongoing thing while we're in this dream, that the closer that we get to the light, the more the ego reacts, and because its identity is being threatened, and so that's why. And you know, so it tends to, the closer you get, the more you feel that peace, that joy, that love, the more you're going to feel the other side as well, you know, and it's going to be there. And so that.
How about some specifics? Can you give us some specific examples of when you really touched onto something really beautiful? You had a white light moment, and you woke up the next morning at 3 a.m., you know, with, you know, demons hovering above your head. I mean, I'm just being facetious, but can you give us some specifics?
Well, I mean, not really. I mean, it happens all the time. I've gone through, you know, it happens on a small, at almost a minute by minute level, and also in terms of, you know, going through over my life, over my lifetime, I've gone through some extreme periods of ego backlash that, you know, that I have that I did describe at one point as mental illness. And
yes,
you know, I certainly experienced that. And
we thought we were going mentally ill. Good. That's a nugget right there. It wasn't mental illness. It was ego backlash. Good. I want to stamp that for this archive.
Yeah, I mean, you can call it whatever you like. Of course, the words are words, you know. But yeah,
Jack's doing this.
I felt it, and I felt it. Oh, hi, Jack. Nice you were there. Yeah, and so yeah, I felt it, and it's just, you know, what's the solution to it, if you will? It's just to give it over to the Holy Spirit, ultimately, or Jesus, whichever.
And how do we do that? How do we turn it over? You know, I mean, those Course in Miracles students, I had so many Course in Miracles teachers say, just turn it over. Well, and I was getting really frustrated and really angry, and that's when Stephanie arrived. Stephanie, I'm going to put you on the spot now. You know, Stephanie didn't tell me to turn it over. She sat with me. She said, "This is what you're going." Very clearly, she said, "This is what you're going through," and then, you know, she said the solution is to ride the Bronco. Before turning it over, I have to ride the Bronco sometimes.
Well, I think you ride the Bronco as long as you need to, but you don't need to do it any more than you need to, because the solution is to turn it over, and that and the moment you do that,
I think riding the Bronco is part of the clearing of the mind, and because you're not going to be willing or capable of handing it over until your mind is cleared. Because when you're in a storm, the idea of handing it over is meaningless. And usually when you talk about handing it over, that's usually the dream figure that's doing that. But, it's the ego part of the self, it's the mind that's trying to hand it over. And that's why it's so frustrating, because it's impossible for me in my pain, suffering, and absolutely engulfed in my individuality. It's impossible for me to hand it over, because I don't want to hand it over when I'm in that. I'm clinging to my individuality.
There it is.
Right?
Yeah.
Like ride the Bronco, and what riding the Bronco really means to just be willing to be in the storm.
Okay. That's perfect, Stephanie. What I heard you say is the dream character can't hand it over. Martin, I'm sorry if I got a little bit pushy. I'm trying to I'm new at this facilitation, but what I heard from Stephanie is the dream character can't hand it over.
Right.
No, I can't. Of course not. No, I mean, but well, yeah, the dream character can just it can just give it up. I mean,
or the dream character has to give up. The dream character has to give up. Is that what I hear you saying?
Whatever. Yeah, the dream character. I mean, you give it up.
I mean, I know we're splitting hairs here, but someone's got to split these hairs, because this is a razor's edge that we're being asked to walk.
No, the dream character can't, and that's why we need the Holy Spirit. That's why we need Jesus to do it.
There it is. It can't be done. We can't do this with a secular. We cannot be secular. Is that what I hear you saying too? It can't be secular.
Secular.
Secular is atheist. What's the definition of secular, guys? Atheistic. There has to be yeah.
Well, yeah, you have to be ready. The mind has to be ready to let go. The mind has, like A Course in Miracles says, you have to be in a position where you get on your knees and say, there must be a better way.
Yep, good. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And
that's when God enters them.
The mind is going to do everything it can to do it itself.
Right.
And until it realizes, I can't do this. I cannot do it. I can't deal with it. At that point, you can give it up.
Right. And you have to be in a position where you have exhausted all avenues. Right. And because you're going to exhaust all avenues. And so it's just like the mind is not going to let go until it's ready to let go.
Okay. All right. So surrender then.
Yeah. And in my life right now, or my journey, I'm at the point right now where I don't value the individuality anymore. I don't value the world anymore. Now that doesn't mean I'm not in it and I can't enjoy my sip of coffee or whatever it is I'm doing, but I absolutely know that there is no world, and I've accepted that fully. So and therefore I'm in a position where I'm ready to let go, and I'm doing that. Yeah.
And to get to this point, Stephanie, your ministry has brought in this eye of the needle, fifth stage of development that had to put you through the ringer. You've shared your interviews with Dakini. You've got 2 of them online with Dakini so far that share specifically what it took to get to this place of surrender.
Right.
And were those ego backlashes taking place, inside of the eye of the needle? Those must have been ego backlashes taking place.
Yeah, but it's ego backlashes on steroids.
Thank you.
Yeah, it gets even more vicious, in other words. So the ego goes from suspiciousness to viciousness, and even the suspiciousness is vicious, but it's viciousness, and we all know how that feels, right? Like we read in A Course in Miracles, we read, The ego will attack you when you're being most loving. And when you first read that, you just think, okay, well, maybe somebody is going to get mad at me when I'm in a loving state, which that could be it too. But as you go deeper into the undoing and you hit severe ego backlash, you understand what that means experientially, because you're experiencing the ego in your mind like a vortex or some kind of a dark energy that's trying to take you over. Like it's like you're being consumed by a darkness. And Martin,
Good.
I know from conversations with you, Martin, that you've experienced this. You know, this dark abstract energy is trying to take you over. Now, I'm not saying this to frighten anybody. I'm just saying that at some point in our journey, the ego gets absolutely hysterical, you know, in our mind, right? Just trying to slow us down. And the Holy Spirit said to me, the mind of God is here. You're sliding into home base, which is when the ego screams the loudest. So this is what it is, right? It's, yeah.
Stephanie, this morning after we talked, you sent me a passage that I read at the beginning of the Zoom call. You can watch the archive, and I'll just read the first few sentences. The ego attacks when you're being most loving. The ego shifts abruptly from suspiciousness to viciousness. The ego uses the body, and I included the psychological body, to conspire against your mind. Now, that was a key component because right now I'm in great physical shape. I have not had any physical ailments, you know, ego backlash. And I said, well, maybe I'm not in the fifth stage of development, until I heard Lloyd say the psychological body gets attacked as well. Because mine is all, you know, and that's why, Martin, I'm glad you came on the call, because Martin, you and I did, you know, other Zoom calls together in another ministry called Psychiatric Sobriety, where we thought we were told we were mentally ill. At least I didn't believe it, but I said, the doctors all kept saying, well, this is clearly mental illness. And no, it's not. It's ego backlash on steroids attacking the psychological and the mental body. I mean, I know what, you know, I used to judge Christians. They would say, there's Satan out there. There's Satan out there. And I would say, oh, you're all so superstitious. Well, you know what? Actually, I had to eat a lot of humble pie because, you know, the Christians were actually honing in on something. Now, it wasn't a red figure with horns and a pitchfork, you know, in a fiery. But if you want to really take a look at the ego, you will realize it does carry a lot of Satan. It's like Satan. It's poking us with a pitchfork. The Christians were honing, and they didn't have the metaphysics, but they were getting pretty close. Go ahead, Steph.
Well, Satan is the personification of the ego, right? You know, that's what the devil is, the personification of the ego. But I just want to say this as well about ego backlash. You'll reach you'll reach a certain point on your journey, which is stage 4, and then we slip into a stage 5. Whether that's the eye of the needle or not, that's not really important for this conversation. But the other thing that comes up, I want to mention this, the other thing that comes up is trauma. So you're gonna go through trauma. And that's really the trauma of leaving our source. But it's also, you know, trauma that we've gone through in other lifetimes. So that trauma is coming back. It's coming up from the unconscious mind to be dealt with. And that's where terror comes from. If anyone has experienced terror in their mind, and I certainly have many, many times, it was sort of like the predominant emotion, let's say, during my eye of the needle experience, terror. You know, just absolute terror around everything. And I went through days like this. But it was pointed out to me that that's actually trauma. So I wanted to say that if you're experiencing trauma, it could be, if you're experiencing terror, it's probably coming from trauma from other lifetimes, which of course is a reflection of the trauma that we experienced when we left our source. Yeah.
Okay, so this is good. So this therefore would be under I'm trying to corral this into ego backlash, and this is really helpful. Is that trauma that we're experiencing from other lifetimes? Is the ego, is it just coming up because it needs to be alchemized, or is the ego going to use that to try and thwart us from moving forward?
Well, it depends on how you look at it, because it's both of those things. It's the ego, yes, definitely coming up, you know, both barrels, which can be under the banner of, you know, severe ego backlash. But the Holy Spirit will use it for the purpose of alchemization.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is heavy duty. This Course in Miracles path is not for the faint of heart. You know, once we get into this, go ahead.
are ready. And what I'm finding now, there are certain parts of the mind that are coming together because they're ready. They're ready now to take, the final step. They're ready now to really step up to the plate and experience what the Course in Miracles is pointing us to. And they're willing to go whatever it takes in order to get there, because there's been a very deep level of commitment that has been made in our mind. And we recognize that in each other, right? Those that are coming together now to learn and to teach, and it's all under Holy Spirit guidance. We have no idea what anything is going to look like.
That's what you and Lloyd and I joined on this morning, because we realize that we have no control over what's happening any longer. And we're surrendered. Stephanie, you told me, weeks ago, that was one of your favorite words. But then it's followed by, we will be shown, we will be led, we will be guided. And you have said so many times over and over, trust, to rely on Spirit totally. I use that mantra every day.
Right, I do too. And the other acronym that came to me from Spirit was to rise up and stop thinking. That's trust.
I'm so grateful you came on this call, Stephanie. I want, you're my teacher, you've been my teacher for several months. I want this archived.
That's wonderful. And Lloyd I just texted Lloyd, but he's going through a bit of ego backlash today in his leg. So he probably never even got my text, because I'm out actually picking up groceries. I'm picking up some supplies in a nearby town. And I was thinking that might be nice, right? But anyway, it doesn't matter. It's all beautiful.
Well, I certainly appreciate you coming, and Martin too. I appreciate you coming, and all of you guys. Who here hasn't spoken? Who's just sitting on a powder keg of sharing? You're smiling, Cheryl, but you've already shared.
Powder keg of ego backlash.
Yeah, really. What's really going on for I don't want to hear about a whole bunch of spiritual manifestation, because I'm kind of a shadow worker here more than anything else. What is who has been getting really boomeranged? Who's just had an explosion of love come out of them, and then just found something that the demons come in at 3 a.m. Because that's what we're here to expose. We all expose it together in a community setting. Then this is where the alchemy takes place. This is where Jesus, enters in and helps us unbelieve it. And then we start to get a chuckle, a little bit of a laugh. And that's what I call a miracle. Anybody got some stuff to share with us? I want to give everyone an equal opportunity.
And we're all sharing. Remember, when one is sharing, we're all sharing.
Yeah.
Because we're all participating in it, right? And we're all being healed by the one sharing. Like Martin, I just wanted to say, Kenneth, if I could, Martin, I really loved your video with Dakini, because it was more than just you and Dakini talking. I felt like a transmission. I felt the transmission energy of surrender in it. I don't even know if I could duplicate or tell you in one word that was said in the video. I just know that I could feel the transmission of surrender energy from me. That's what I got from it. So I wanted to just mention that to you. It was quite beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I hear that.
I want to say, I love this line, surrender to be carried.
There you go. That's it.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's beautiful.
You brought up trauma, Stephanie, and that's what this Course in Miracles community needs to start talking about trauma. Because I kept early in my path, all this trauma from my childhood came up, and I said it couldn't. My parents were just normal. They were dysfunctional, but it was the 1970s in Southern California. For Christ's sake, all the parents were dysfunctional, Kenneth. But it just kept coming up in waves and waves. And my poor parents, I could only imagine what they had to go through, but I kept going for help. I kept going psychologists and psychology and 12-step programs and meetups. And it was the 1990s. What option did we have? But finally, you're right, Stephanie, there was some stuff coming up from previous lives. I know my parents are on the other side. They've totally forgiven me. But, I was doing the best I could. You're right. The ego, saw that I had a great deal of potential, even before the Course in Miracles, and says, we got to stop this young man. I'm not young anymore. I've lost all my hair, but the ego has been on me for my entire journey. You know, just saying, do not let this man, you know, do not let him make it to 57. Do not let him find David Hoffmeister. Don't let him meet Stephanie Finn. Don't let him find the Course in Miracles. Well, you know, excuse me, but fuck you, ego. You know, like I said in your Zoom call, I'm a stubborn son of a bitch. I'm not going to let you take it down. I am going to make it to age 57. I am going to host a Zoom call, and we're going to start talking about it.
Absolutely, Mark. I mean, Kenneth, yeah. No, I mean, look, I had a really good point just then, and I'm after losing it.
Well, I'm not going to let you lose it. I'm going to pull it out of you.
Came right, coming right. Oh, I was going to say that, you know, most of the mighty companions, including yourself, me, and I'm probably everyone on this call, we've written very difficult scripts in this lifetime, not necessarily in form, but in content. In other words, there's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of unresolved darkness that was destined to come up in this lifetime review. And so that's really what you're speaking of here. What you're really saying is that through this lifetime review, there's been an absolute lot of trauma coming up to be resolved. And it was just a matter of motivation and a matter of time. And of course, the Holy Spirit's alternative script brought you to things like A Course in Miracles. And, you know, you reached out for a better way, because eventually that's what we do, because really we want to wake up. We write these difficult scripts because we want to wake up.
Yeah, Kenneth, Kenneth cannot go through the eye of the needle. Kenneth cannot go through the cocoon. Kenneth can't wake up. That's the point that Keith Kavanaugh finally got through to me.
Yeah, it's the mind that wakes up.
Yes.
While it's being Kenneth.
You know, that's what Jesus was trying to tell us the whole time. You know, and but I don't think the human race, and I want to bring this up too. I don't think the human race was really prepared. I think they were doing the best they can. So I want to give religions the benefit of the doubt, although I don't want to touch that one right now. But now Jesus said, okay, 1970s, we got to get this into the collective now. So poor Helen, you know, he said, this is A Course in Miracles, take notes. She was all like, no, I don't want to take notes. He pushed this book into us. But Stephanie, because maybe we can shift the topic now. We're going way out here, but this is the Great Awakening now. Time's up. You know, the alarm bell's gone off. We got to wake up now. So those of us who are being called who have to wake up now.
Yes. Yeah, that's why it's become so intense.
Thank you.
I just want to say again to that, what I'm hearing is that I didn't just lose that. Is that I think like every day, you know, we need to practice stepping out of our personality. And that also means stepping out of your past. Just if you have to pretend to make it disappear like it doesn't exist anymore, and step out of your personality and all of the thoughts and feelings that go with that identity, and stand right here in the center, in the present, and just practice imagining what that feels like.
Yes.
Stephanie, I keep cutting you off and I apologize. I feel so awful for doing that, but now I'm going to let you have it. Can you speak on the Great Awakening for us? I want that archived in this Zoom call too. Yeah,
well, okay. So the Great Awakening, do you want me to sort of, well, it doesn't matter because I'm going to say what I'm going to say anyway. But the Great Awakening is another way of saying the celestial speed up. And yeah, it just means that more parts of the mind are now wanting to wake up to God's reality. They're wanting to let their individuality go, and they're wanting to see what that looks like. They don't know really what it looks like. Now, we can come up with all kinds of scenarios and fantasies, and there's like a new age involvement in it and everything like that. But ultimately, what it really means is that we want more than anything to be in God's will and to surrender our own will. Okay. And so the Great Awakening itself means that there is more light right now. There's just more light in the collective mind. The sleeping mind is waking up. That's the Great Awakening. And it's waking up through us. Jesus said that the way that it's happening through our mind. It's happening through our mind collectively. And that's really all I would say about the Great Awakening. I mean, I know there's much more that can be said, but I really kind of just like to put it down to that, something very simple, because, ultimately, nothing outside of yourself can save you. Nothing outside of yourself can set you free. We have to go through this ego backlash. We have to go through the dark night of the soul to get to the other side of that. There's no fantasy of even of a great awakening that can save us, right? It's,
Okay.
the only way through is to go through it. And that's why it's taking so much courage, because there's a lot coming up right now for us collectively and individually.
Okay. So even the Great Awakening has to go out the window along with the Course in Miracles book, but
for a lot of people, that's just become like a sort of a new age concept, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's going to be used for the Holy Spirit purpose, but ultimately, what is the Great Awakening? Well, it's the awakening of the mind. And how does our mind wake up? Through going through things like ego backlash, which is the theme of this session here today. Okay. Right? And yes, we're inspired by each other, and we're uplifted, and we can reinforce one another, and that's an essential part of this. But ultimately, you have to go through it yourself in your own mind.
And when we joined a couple of days ago, Stephanie, I remember one thing from that call is you said, Kenneth, you need to go into. You didn't say you need to, but I'll just say that you kept telling me, Kenneth, stillness. And you told me to set my stopwatch. And that was difficult for me because I've got crazy mad voice inside of my head is screaming at Kenneth right now. But I said, every time it does, I said, I want to call my mighty companions, and that's fine to call them. But I also heard, Kenneth, go take a walk and practice your stillness first.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Stillness and silence. Because, really, ultimately, we have to dive into these fears and this trauma that's coming up in the mind. And the only way to do that is through, and when I say the stillness and silence, I mean that when you're in the midst of a storm of fear, you can go into the silence, you can still touch it. It's difficult when you're in the storm, but remember, the eye of the needle or the eye of the storm is in the middle of the storm. So that's the only way through is to go within when you're in the storm. So your mind can touch on that stillness, even if it's for 5 seconds. You know how I always say, you don't have to pressure yourself to sit there for 8 hours or anything, but even if you can do it for a couple of minutes.
That's good. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, good, because I'm pulling information out of you, Stephanie, that I want archived. Because that ties into what you and Dakini have been, teaching me this last year is the exact phrase that you use is be with what is intolerable.
Yeah.
And ego backlash is quite intolerable. It can seem that way, but you're sharing with us how to be with it.
Absolutely. You have to be with it. Like no matter what's happening and no matter how fearful you're feeling, go into it. Just let it, like Dakini says, let it have its airtime. Feel it, breathe deeply, just lay on a yoga mat and let it become a session for yourself, like a therapy session. Just breathe it in. Let your crazy thoughts be there, but try to go beyond the thoughts or the story and into the raw, abstract fear that's coming up. That's the only way through. No. And it's like you'll come to a point where you just can't do that anymore and you'll just let it go. And you will have the recognition that you've just done something really important for yourself. It's like you've burned away a portion of unconscious fear and guilt.
Kind of like an iceberg. That's one of the poems that you wrote. You tried to wanting us to visualize an iceberg. I think I read one of your poems.
Yeah. Because all the unconscious guilt and fear is coming up from the bottom of the iceberg. It's on the bottom of the iceberg actually is the most beautiful part of it. It's like a lot of sediments. They settle at the bottom of the iceberg. So you have this beautiful blues and these greens and violets, these gorgeous hues at the very bottom. That's all this sediment which has settled. And so this is what we're at the bottom of the well now, doing the bottom of the well work. And that's why all stuff is coming up. We can't understand it. We can't associate it with anything we've done in our life. A lot of it is coming up from past timelines, other timelines that we can't remember consciously. So we have to ride the Bronco. Just let it be there, burn through it. Just be still, be silent, as much alone time as you can. Now, I know all these things I'm talking about. It's almost like you go into fear, right? Because it's hard when Pandora's box opens and all these demons start popping out, coming out. But that's the key. That's the only way through, is to go through it.
Okay, and I'm glad you go ahead.
I say I know Martin can identify with it.
And Martin, you can go next, but I just want I want this documented, because you documented it with those two Miracles Cafe with Dakini, but now it's my turn. And this is happening. Ego backlash is happening not because anything is going wrong. Quite contrary. Something is going very, very right. Ben ties it into ego backlash. The ego is going, the ego may have been kind of sleeping before, and all of a sudden the alarms went off. Ding, 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 ding. Stephanie's beginning to wake up. Martin's beginning to wake up. Lisa's beginning to wake up. Get out your arsenal. Send out the sentinels. The Battle of Mordor has begun. I mean, I don't want to sound like a drama queen, but if you're an ego backlash, I'm not being dramatic.
You got it 100%. And you know something? It's been my experience that I never sugarcoat my experience, because it's not helpful to sugarcoat it. You have to be honest about it, because that's helpful for other parts of the mind that are going through it. All of a sudden they'll say, oh my God, thank God, someone, like, I'm not going insane here. Like, I remember on Facebook one time, someone said to me, I can't access the Holy Spirit. Like, that's a meaningless concept for me now. Because a lot of people will say to her, just ask the Holy Spirit to help you, or just forgive it. Choose another thought. Ask the Holy Spirit, join with the Holy Spirit. Well, when you're suffering, the idea of joining with the Holy Spirit is just an absolute meaningless concept for you. So just knowing that I wasn't the only one going through that was helpful for me. It made me feel less alone in that moment. Because the Holy Spirit will come back into the mind when the time is right, when I'm ready to let go, when my mind has done enough deep dive into darkness, the Holy Spirit presence is going to show up again. And it's always been there, of course. So Holy Spirit is always available. But my conscious noticing of it and immersion of it will return.
Yeah.
Yeah, after I ride the Bronco.
See, that's where you came into I mean, I was hitting the red zone, last winter. And that's when all of a sudden, I reached out to Lloyd. And then I didn't know who you guys were. I just kept seeing Lloyd on Facebook. So I thought, all right, well, maybe this is because I was just reaching out for anyone, does someone know what I'm going through? And all of a sudden you sat on the couch next to Lloyd, and you just looked into the camera and you described exactly what was happening. And I said, oh my God, I've been seen and heard. Because everyone else was giving me, no fault, no blame, but they were saying, have you tried the Christ blessing? I said, the Christ blessing isn't working. I mean, you gotta kind of, I get a laugh at it, but I needed a little bit more than that, but I needed someone to tell me who had already been through it and was going to, share with me that I wasn't alone in it. Oh, I'm willing to go through it. I just want to know that, I'm not alone. And it was like, oh.
Absolutely. And you're going through something that your mind decided to go through in this timeline review. It's like direct revelation. The mind has decided when that's going to happen. Same thing with the eye of the needle. The mind has decided when this is going to happen. And once it starts, it's like you won't guess if you're going through it. It's like being pregnant. You won't guess. You won't say, oh, I think I might be. You will know you're going through it because it'll be so severe. You just know it immediately. It's like, oh my God. And it'll be confirmed to you. In other words, someone will come along or something, something will come along to reinforce and validate what you're going through. I mean, that's what happened to me.
Stephanie, you know what I'm doing? I'm just keeping you on here so I can I want all this stuff archived so I can go back with my video editing software, because these are the nuggets that's I live for this stuff. Nothing else brings me joy, you guys. My life right now is about, it's like that sun on the back of that green screen I've got, there it is. It's become my full time waking up,
And
Yeah.
me too. Like Lloyd and
No.
I thing, we don't think about anything. As soon as we wake up in the morning, we're doing it, right? We're working it. The minute we wake up, we're just absolutely doing whatever we're doing, you know. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to sign up. I'm in the middle of a residential area here. I'm going to sign up so I can come on home and start my chicken tacos for the night.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Oh, I'm so thrilled I got you on video.
Guys, I'm really grateful to be here today.
Well, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for everyone who showed up. You know.
Thanks, guys. Love you.
Okay. Bye, sweetie.
Stephanie.
Now I got to figure out how to leave.
Well,
you
you might not be able to.
No, I normally like my calls. Go ahead.
It's swiping. You have to swipe over.
Okay. I'm on my iPhone here, so I'm not used to being on my iPhone. And okay.
I think she found it.
You guys, you want to? I normally only keep these an hour, but I all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, more stuff is coming in. Keep the recording going. Do you guys want to add anything to this recording? Get anything out of it? Anything I missed? Because I can cut and paste this, you know, and you know, just if you want to, because we got to get this out to the world. That's what this is. This isn't about, you know, yeah, we're going to heal ourselves, but you guys realize that's why I wanted Stephanie to talk about the Great Awakening. We are in the Great Awakening, and look at us. We're older. I mean, we have paid our dues. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but you know, these wrinkles, I've earned them. You know, but so what gifts have we got to share with the world? You know, we got a lot of, we might have some younger kids who's like, you know, looking up to us for, you know, elder wisdom. And sure, by God, I know we've got it, but we got to, you know, realize that's what we embody. We're elders now. Come on, Lisa, stop doing that.
I just feel like sometimes the painful things that come up are like breadcrumbs.
Greatest teachers.
They're the breadcrumbs home. They're the signs, the signposts.
Some wisdom.
Yeah, that we need to look at something, you know.
We need to look at something. I didn't want to look at stuff in Pittsburgh. I had a lot to look at in Pittsburgh.
There's a lot to look at everywhere. It's not a place. It's in our mind. But yeah.
Martin, you and I have been walking this path, and we haven't spent a lot of time together, but we've been, you know, we were on periphery for years and years. What's life, you know, what gifts have you gotten out of this? It's hard. It's been a hard path for this. You know, I've had my heart broken. I've had my heart broken open. I've been leveled, humbled countless times. It's not an easy journey.
I don't really have any more to say actually on this issue, except one thing: we don't have to do any of it ourselves. We don't have to do any of it. Simply hand it over to Jesus.
There it is.
Do it for us.
We cannot do it.
It's that simple.
We can't.
It's that simple.
It is that simple.
We can suffer. We can ride the Bronco as long as we want to. But that's not going to do it. Okay, we have to give it over. That's all I want to say.
That's all that needs to be said, because you brought us back home, Martin. That's what they used to tell us in the 12 steps, you know, 30 years ago. My sponsor just looked at me and she said, "Keep it simple, stupid." Her exact words. So thank you. All right.
When we look at the stuff, we look at it with our right mind.
I know.
Yeah. So that's what it's about. We cannot do it from the ego.
No.
Yeah.
My grandmother would say, "Give it a whirl." As my friend Lighthouse would say, "How's that working for you? How's that working for you?"
It doesn't work.
All right, you guys. Now we've gone, you know, almost 40 minutes over, but it was valuable because I collect wisdom. It's my new hobby, and we got wisdom from Lisa, Martin. We got them for all the rest. But okay, so for the second time, this is Kenneth Price, and this is Saturday, June 29th, and this is the first Zoom call that I've hosted at 12 p.m. noon Eastern Standard Time for the new ministry. That's 2ormorr1.com with the number 2. So, okay, this is going to be on YouTube, and I want you to leave your comments below. It's really important that I get feedback so we know who's listening, what's helpful. you know, and how can we support you? And basically, that's what I would have to say. So just thank you, everyone. You know, I couldn't be more grateful. All right, that's it for the recording. Yeah, thank you. God bless. And as I say at the end of all my recordings, may the force be with you. Bye.